Welcome back to the Build Show. I'm Travis Brungart. Today I want to talk to you about how to waterproof your foundation below grade on an addition to an existing home. We're working with an insulated concrete form product. Today's episode is sponsored by Polyguard. Let me show you how to do it. All right, so as is common with many projects on existing homes, you have to make the best of what the existing conditions allow. And on a small project like this, where we're up a steep hill, it makes a ton of sense to utilize an insulated concrete form to form up this crawl space addition. This is just a primary suite and closet bathroom extension, so it's only 8 by 20. Very easy for us then to self-perform a footing insulated concrete form wall installation and then go ahead and pour the concrete core as well. This is also something that a larger company could do on a better site even faster. Insulated concrete forms have a lot of benefits, but one of the things that people often get wrong with insulated concrete forms is best practices for waterproofing. People can get vexed by materials incompatibility and utilize something that would potentially eat the foam to adhere their membranes. Polyguard has thought all this through, and they provided us a system that allows us to provide below grade waterproofing that will keep our crawl space dry and make our installation easy. So let me take you through it. The first step for us is actually addressing this bottom of wall joint to top of footing. The insulated concrete forms vary depending on manufacturer. This happens to be a perfect block application, and it's a square edge, so there is not a recess at the bottom edge of those forms. So we didn't actually have the challenges that some other forms might have had, where they would have to fill a little half-inch gap. We have essentially a dead flush condition, and this block is actually glued to the footing. But just in keeping with best practices and to make sure that we were able to show the products that Polyguard recommends for this application, we did utilize some of their detailing sealant here. They also recommend a blue barrier, which is their other product line, but that allows us to make sure that we have positive continuity and no sharp corner to detail in a challenging way. Our next step after detailing that corner is actually to utilize the 650 WB water-based liquid adhesive. And we want to apply this adhesive to our top of footing and our bottom edge of wall, because our next step will be to install some TRM flashing tape. We're going to utilize the 7-inch in that location because we only have about 3.5 inches of footing exposed. And we really just want to detail the top of footing and then up the face of the wall. So Austin's actually already pre-cut some sections of that TRM sill gasket, TRM flashing material, and he's already pre-cut that and folded it down the middle in a nice central crease, so that when we go to install it, we can just adhere the bottom edge, or I guess I should say the bottom side of that L-shaped flashing tape. We'll adhere it to the top of the footing, and then we can work our way up the wall after that. We want to apply positive pressure to roll that flashing tape to get good adhesion, and if we get into a trouble spot, there is even, a spray adhesive that we could add to that to make it a more robust connection. But honestly, the 650 WB has not let us down. So we're gonna keep rolling with that membrane applied. It is important for me to point out, we applied this detail sealant yesterday. You wanna give it 2 hours to dry before you start applying your 650 WB adhesive to your walls. Now, once we have the top of footing to bottom face of wall connection solved, then we can start moving up our wall. Now, if you have a lot of inside and outside corners, you might want to use additional strips of the TRM flashing to detail those. Because we have an 8 by 20 size, we're actually going to be able to use only one piece of the TRM roll here. That's going to allow us to have one singular monolithic layer that applies to the entire face, wraps around the corners. But if you have to do a lot of transitions, you just want to make sure that you use that detail sealant to make those laps all watertight. Once we apply the 650 WB up the side face of our insulated concrete form, and again, this is a water-based adhesive, I believe that's what the WB stands for. That's why you don't have to worry about it eating the foam. We have no compatibility issues with water-based sealants. So this product will remain tacky for about 24 hours, otherwise you need to reapply, is my understanding. So we're gonna apply it, let set, within the next couple hours, we'll have all this applied and adhered without having to reapply. But there is an opportunity to fix it if you get interrupted for some reason. You can reapply a second coat after cleaning it off. So what we have here is the 3-foot roll that, as I said, this is the TRM product, the Term waterproofing termite barrier. And this Polyguard product is going to keep all water infiltration out of this wall system. This is our waterproofing. This is our water management. This is the Polyguard Total Flow drain board system. And this, as you can see on the edge of the profile, is actually thicker at the bottom to allow a higher volume of flow through it. So just like always, we put our dimple mat with the dimples against the wall, and then we have a fabric facer to keep silt from infiltrating and clogging that up. So with that thicker side, we can actually manage the increased volume of water as it moves down the wall. Now, Polyguard makes a series of fittings that will allow you to integrate that into a traditional flexible drain tile, and you can get your water away from your house with those longer runs of pipe. But this will go right on top of our term product, and then will be successfully water managed from start to finish. So after we get everything installed, our crushed stone and our drain tile to carry that water away, then we'll backfill. And obviously the last line of defense is this term particle barrier. When we have our soil 6 to 8 inches below the top of wall, below the top of foundation wall, so that 6 to 8 inches is open and clear to inspect. We can see there if there were any termite tunnels, although with the term product we're not anticipating that. Having that part unfaced is a great starting point for the homeowner, the client, whoever you're serving, to be able to maintain their project, to inspect it regularly and see if there's any activity. We've solved for that at every level so that we don't anticipate that. But Polyguard has thought of pretty much everything here, because after we backfill this, we can utilize their term particle barrier as our last line of defense. This is a granule that will allow the finished appearance of the job to be very nice, but it is a physical barrier to termites crawling. They just can't make their way through the granule size that Polyguard's provided here. So by doing our last 4 inches of fill against the wall here with their 50-pound bags of term particle barrier, we can create yet another barrier that would prevent the termite infiltration from being a risk on our projects. So we're managing water, we're managing pests, and as we move up, we're also going to utilize their Deck Guard HT. Now that's a high temperature underlayment. I think it's good to 200 degrees. So we can utilize that on our roof deck, and it could handle a metal roof, it could handle an asphalt composition shingled roof, but that same great technology from Polyguard in terms of adhesive technologies and water management below grade, we're now transferring above grade to keep water out of the house. So with that, we've done all the talking. Now it's time to show you how it's done. Check it out. Okay, we've essentially got this ready to go. Austin applied the 650 water-based prep liquid, and as you can see, it's drying to a red. So I believe the pink is, the light pink color when it goes on is essentially not dry, and then when it goes to the darker red, it is dry. So we have a couple areas where there's some ponding that is almost dry, and in order to get this applied, just to get a good initial tack as we apply our term tape to the top of the footing, we're going to utilize the 363 high strength fast tack spray adhesive, which is recommended by Polyguard, but we're going to apply that to the top of the footing here. Before we do that, I will just point out that what we've done is pre-cut this section of term and folded back the release paper. So that release film is pulled away and folded underneath. When I flip it down, I should be able to lay it right on top of this footing and get a really nice bond and still have access to the release film so that I can pull it up the wall and adhere it to our insulated concrete form. Again, the purpose of this video is to demonstrate the different applications of products, but I want to keep reiterating, this is a system. Polyguard provides a system of products that are chemically compatible to provide a water resistive barrier below grade here. And this term product is actually termite resistant as well. So like anything that we do, we always want to use a systems approach, make sure that we're staying within the manufacturer's recommendations. And that's why checking with Polyguard about this 363 high strength fast tack spray adhesive makes sense, because their 650 WB primer is all set. We already did the detail sealant at that joint just to show that that would be best practice. But as you can see, this system of ICF actually requires an adhesive to be set for all of the joints. So in our application, it wasn't critical to have continuity of that detail. Most ICF applications would. So with that in place, I'm going to go ahead and lay down a little bit of spray adhesive across the top of our footing. And then with our release film already pulled back, you can see that there, the release film's already pulled back. Should be able to lay this into the corner and work my way across. And we ran our sections of material 4 inches long, 4 to 6 inches long, so that we could get a good overlap. But now we can press that to get a good initial tack, and then we'll just want to use a roller afterward to make sure that we have really good adhesion. But with that set, I can pull the release and stand the term tape up the wall. And now we have a continuous barrier at the connection from our footing to our foundation wall. But it's both water resistant, or really waterproof, and termite resistant. Just need to get a roller on that, and then we'll move on with the other side. So because the footing has a little bit of an irregular top, I'm actually going to use a squeegee instead of a hard roller, because while the roller would work great on the wall, as I hit each of these little concrete nodes in the top of the footing, my hard roller just can't absorb that difference. So the squeegee is a little bit more flexible and does allow for that. But like any pressure sensitive adhesive, we've got to do the work of applying the pressure or it does not function as designed. And we'll go ahead and make a cut at this edge so that we can lap the other material over top. And then I'm just going to leave that long. It's not hurting anything, but I might as well cut it off to make it look nice and clean. Okay, we've sealed our PolyGuard term barrier, the 7-inch, onto the top of the footing and now also up onto the foundation wall. Our next step is to apply the sealant, the WB 650, and we're going to apply it 8 inches down from top of wall because we pre-cut our term barrier to start at grade. So when we backfill, our soil will come to this point and we can leave this exposed. The term product is UV stable, but only for a period of time. It is not a finished surface. So if we ran the term all the way up to encapsulate, we would then have to add some sort of a stone or stucco, parge coat to protect that material, even a metal flashing, anything to allow that term product to remain in place without being exposed to the sun. We cut ours short, so now we're gonna roll that 650 on down the wall, and then we'll start rolling out our term barrier across the exterior of the foundation. Now on an application where we were working from the outside of the wall, we likely would have just run all the 650 at once, all this roll applied product at one time for efficiency. But because we were working from the inside out, I didn't want to get it all over me, so I'm doing it after. All right, Austin and I got all of the 650 WB primer applied to the wall, and now it's dry enough that we can go ahead and install the term waterproofing sheet. And we're gonna start at this inside corner. We already cut this down to leave that 8 inches of exposure, but if we were more concerned about the termite resistance, we could have run it all the way to the top of the wall and then covered it up after the fact to protect it from UV exposure. So I'm gonna have you, Austin, let me shoot a little bit of this 363 at the edge, and then I'll have you kind of hand that over the wall and we'll get it started. This is overkill. It shouldn't really be needed out here, but to get a good start, we'll make it easy on ourselves. All right, if you take that kind of vertically out past the wall. All right. And then this has a release just like the smaller roll of term does. So we're gonna peel that back. And then I can trim off excess. But what I really want to do is get it squeegeed on so we have really good contact all the way back into the corner. And you can see I'm lapping over the other term sill tape. So we now have continuity of water control down and away, down the wall, across the footing, and out, so that when we put our total flow solution on top of this, we're not only managing that water from the standpoint of keeping it out of the foundation, but we're giving it an easy path to get away. And that is really robust adhesion. Now we should be able to go on down the wall. So we'll continue on with this same system until we make it to the end of the wall. It wraps around, we seal it back to the house, and then we'll be back tomorrow. We'll put on the cap as well as, and when I say cap, I'm just referring to the term flashing, the 12-inch that'll go over the top of our wall and underneath our mud sill. We're gonna get that area primed and applied, and then we'll go back with the total flow, the dimple mat that's gonna manage the water on top of our waterproof layer here. That's also a termite barrier. All right, you can see we've got the term waterproofing termite barrier already applied. The top edge is sealed. This has a removable release. If we were doing multiple courses of this, it would self-seal. At this stage, I'm leaving it on. It's not beneficial to remove it. It'll just collect dust and dirt while I'm working on it. But you can see we have really good adhesion, and we are waterproof over the top edge of the footing. This material is bonded to the term barrier below it. And now it's time for us to prep the top of wall. And so we're gonna roll out more of the 650 WB water barrier. It's then gonna receive the TRM flashing in the 12-inch roll because I have a 10-inch wall thickness and I want a little bit of overhang on the outside. And this is an excellent barrier to termites as well as water management. Really a complete strategy for waterproofing the ICF forms once we engage the total flow system and give that water a pathway out. So next up, rolling out product. And I'm really trying to heavy up that outside edge because that's where the rough stuff of the ICF is. We're going to peel this shingle off and integrate our WRB above the mud sill. So at this time, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to leave it lapped up and complete our access to the interior of the house all at once. But this gives us a great starting point because once this material is dry, I am ready to install that term tape. And you can see it dries really, really fast on the concrete itself, a little slower on the ICF. Look at that, already dry. So our next move is to get the single roll of TRM flashing to, like I said, hang up here with some release on it so that we can fix that when we integrate the walls, and then leave it a little bit long so I can run across. And then once again, Polyguard's provided us with a split back, which makes it easy to locate and then pull your other release paper after. Since I'm going to consider my outside of wall my critical edge, because I want it to hang over a little bit, and then I can maintain that little half-inch overhang. Now I have just a little bit of an overhang so that when my siding and sheathing layer covers, I don't have any risk of any water going up underneath. Now, as I said, I want to leave this release on because I still have to detail that out. But I'm able to get started now even without my roller, just applying some pressure that way. Now I can take this excess off, again at that 1/2 inch line, and then take the release off of the back in a very controlled manner. But I just don't want to lose that yet. I'm just using the squeegee to work it in. Again, because the concrete surface is a little bit uneven, I want to make sure that I have good pressure, and I can do that across the edge of a squeegee easier than a hard roller. But the manufacturer's recommendation is to use a roller, and that makes sense because you want to make sure that you have really good pressure. So I may, in addition to squeegeeing, roll it after the fact. And then we can just continue right on down the wall, capping the entire thing, protecting it from termites and from water from here on out. So here's a situation where we can run our waterproofing up underneath. So obviously we're integrating here. So that wraps us up for today. To recap, we started by applying the detail sealant across the connection from the footing to the wall form. Then we applied the primer, the WB650, and adhered a 7-inch strip of the term tape, 3.5 across the top of footing, 3.5 up the wall. Then we primed the wall itself, applied an entire continuous barrier of the term waterproofing and termite barrier, and we kept that down 8 inches from top of wall so that it wouldn't be seen after grading and we wouldn't have to protect it from UV. And the last thing we did today was cap the top of wall with a 12-inch term tape. Again, we primed the top of wall with a 650 WB and then applied the term tape and then rolled it on, squeegeed it in some areas, but got really good adhesion as a function of pressure application. So tomorrow we'll begin with the gravel placement and total flow install to allow that water a path to drain down and away. All right, welcome back to day 2 of our PolyGuard term waterproofing and termite barrier install on this ICF crawl space edition. Now, we talked yesterday about the different steps in the process, but I'm just going to quickly recap as Austin rolls everything out. We started by applying the primer, the 650 WB, at the bottom of the wall, the footing top, as well as up the wall, before we applied the 7-inch term tape. And we applied that in sort of a split fashion, down on top of the footing first, and then pulled the release and applied it to the wall. Then we rolled the 650 WB on the wall over the top of that, up to about 8 inches down from our top of wall, and rolled out this term waterproofing termite barrier membrane across the side. We did set some of the blue barrier at the corners, and we actually had done some detail sealant at the bottom of wall to the footing before we installed that first layer of term. But since we didn't have a gap there, it wasn't as crucial on this install. That is a common need though. So the blue barrier is a great way to address any of your gaps greater than 1/8 of an inch. At our wall condition to addition, we applied that so we'd have a great seal and a really robust connection there. So after installing the term waterproofing termite barrier to the wall, I had installed it a little bit with a squeegee. We went ahead and went back over it with the hard roller. We then primed the top of the wall and installed the term sill seal there as well. It's a flashing tape that's 12 inches wide, very much like the 7-inch wide, just a white color. And after priming that with the 650 WB and installing it, again with the squeegee, we went back and rolled it as well. Now we're ready to go ahead and install our total flow solution. And this is the product that has sort of the graduated or increased thickness going down the side. You can see that at the top of the wall, it's a shallower dimple. And as we move down the wall, we increase that volume that it can manage. And it still has the same great silt protection on the outside. We're gonna be able to install this with a spray adhesive right over top of the term barrier, such that it will tack to the smooth plastic back here and to the face of this for a permanent install. We then have 72 hours to get our backfill in, and that soil will actually hold that in place against that adhesive for the life of the project. So that's what we're about to do next. We do have a couple of key details when installing the total flow solution. Obviously, we want to end at a good place where we're tying into this foundation. If there was an existing drain tile, Polyguard does make an adapter for the bottom of the total flow to tie in to your 4-inch flexible drain tile. We don't have an existing drain tile here, so we're not going to address that on this project, but if you go to polyguard.com, they have all of those accessories for you. We're going to adhere the total flow solution to our term membrane with the 363 spray adhesive, and we're going to apply that to both the face of the term and the back of the total flow, and we'll get it installed that way. We also then have the matter of outside corners to address, and for that, all we need to do is slice the face of the fabric so that we don't tear it, and that'll give us the relief for an outside corner. For an inside corner, we would have to do a different procedure where we're trying to combine or sort of crush in those dimples so that we can make it articulate at a hard 90 degrees. But we have pre-rolled out and cut our sections to length. We're gonna start on the back side, and I'll show you where we finish up here in just a minute. All right, so we started with our total flow at the back corner, which is frankly a little bit hard to see on camera here. So we've already completed the backside total flow wrapping around the corner. Of course, we rolled it out and pre-cut it to length. And then what we've done is just split the face of the fabric so that we could turn that hard 90. With this needing to turn 90 degrees, the fabric prevents it from doing that. So at your turn location, you just split the fabric on the facer, not on the high part where it's thinner, but on the low part where it's so thick, and then you can make your bend in advance and get a hard crease. So then I have this hard 90, and all I have to do is then duct tape of this same fabric over that to patch it so it doesn't have silt integrate. And that's what we'll do here. We just use some extra fabric to cover that up. So we have that hard 90-degree corner turned here, and then we just need to apply the spray adhesive to the wall. That's the 363 product, and that will allow us to get good adhesion from the face of the term product to the back side of the total flow. So if I take this up and out of the way, you can see this is a very smooth plastic, and so if I apply the sealant to that, the adhesive to that and to this material, that allows me to get a really good initial bite, and then I have 72 hours before I would have any sort of concern to get this backfilled, because obviously the soil is going to hold that back in place. Having already adhered it back there, I'm gonna go ahead and complete that process out here. Again, this is the 363, but it's all about adhesion from the plastic to the plastic. Now, if we had multiple layers of this total flow going up the wall, we could flap our fabric over the top of the next piece, but that's not the condition here. This is already terminated and rolled back underneath so that it would rest on top of this. And you always want to go shingle lapped up the wall, so it's already set up for you to do it properly. And we've let air react on both sides, so we should be able to stick this together and have it seal up nice. Certainly one of the keys is keeping it clean. And you can see it's got really great grab already. The fabric across the top is already sealed, so I don't have to add the duct tape at the top, but that is one of the things that Polyguard recommends, is sealing this with some duct tape to get some additional, I guess you'd say, assurance that you won't have any fines integrate down into the total flow. So I'm gonna go ahead and use that black duct tape across the top edge, and then I'll go ahead and make this repair, and that will make us ready for gravel, and then we are water managed. And now there's no risk of any fines getting down into our system. We want to promote good adhesion, so we're just applying good pressure across. And now we can do the fabric repair. So I removed this from an excess section, but this is just more of the same filter fabric. And we have 2 outside corner repairs. So I'm going to take this and divide it into 2. And now all we have to do is cover up that corner to make sure that we don't have anything integrate back behind. And I'm gonna tape that at top and sides, but to make my life a little bit easier, I'm just gonna hit it with some of the 630. And Polyguard does specify that this be a 3-inch wide duct tape roll, and that'll keep that in place, but I'll still do the sides. And now we shouldn't have any risk of fines moving into that system from the side or from the top. We'll complete the same process at the back corner, and then we'll go ahead and backfill with crushed stone as we normally would. Again, Polyguard does make an adapter that would interface with the edge of the total flow that would allow you to integrate with a 4-inch flexible drain tile. So we could go ahead and make that connection here and run out to daylight, or we could run it inside of the foundation to a sump pump. Because we're elevated higher than the basement level, there's already a sump backing us. We're not doing that here. But this is a complete solution to manage water below grade, as well as provide termite resistance by the time we integrate all the products here, including the particle barrier at the top. We've defended this home from water and pests for the life of it. So if you need more information about these products or installation, go to polyguard.com, products, and find term, and they'll have the solution for you. I'm Travis Brungart, thanks for watching.